This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 29, Talking Content Marketing with Ryan Hanley of the Content Warfare Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is July 25th, 2013. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for episode 29 of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes, so if you're listening to this episode on the blog or possibly on Spreaker, you can click on over and subscribe. That means you'll get new episodes automatically delivered to your iPod or your smartphone or your listening device of choice. And if you have an Android or other device that doesn't sync with iTunes, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link to you in the blog post. Last week's podcast was all about authenticity, which has become just a huge buzzword in marketing circles and particularly among content marketers. So last week we took a few minutes to talk about what authenticity really is, why it's important, especially in this day and age, and why, quote unquote, just be yourself might just be the most bogus advice you will ever hear. So if you happen to miss that episode, feel free to click on over to iTunes or to the RSS feed and get all caught up. So that brings me to today's topic. Today we are talking content marketing with Ryan Hanley, master content marketer and host of the Content Warfare Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to welcome a fellow content marketer to the podcast. Ryan Hanley is the Director of Marketing for the Murray Group Insurance Services, Incorporated, located in Albany, New York. He takes what he learns through marketing his insurance agency and produces the Content Warfare Podcast, a podcast dedicated to answering the question, how do we win the battle for attention online? So without further ado, here is our chat about content marketing with Ryan Hanley. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, pleasure to have you. So before we get into all things content marketing, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So I am the Director of Marketing for a local single location independent insurance agency in upstate New York. So I work for a family business. Actually, my in-laws' family business. So my wife's father owns the agency, and I actually work with her entire family. Her brother works here, and her twin sister works here, and she works here. So it's a family operation, and out of that has spurred a couple kind of side projects, which are my content marketing blog, which is basically where I take the work that I do here on a daily basis, and I just talk about the things that work, mostly framed around mid to small businesses, just because that's what I know. And it's really just, here, this works, this doesn't, here's a little trick. We're talking about YouTube today, blah, blah, blah. This is what's working for us. And it's a pretty casual format. And then I also have a podcast that I do, which is the Content Warfare Podcast, which is essentially where I take those topics and dive deeper. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Okay, great. And on a personal note, I understand that congratulations are in order.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, we're anxiously awaiting our first child, a little boy, and he is due in November.
Awesome. I'm a November baby myself, so.
All right. Well, then he'll be in good company then.
Great. So does he have his own Twitter account yet, or is that?
Not yet. I'm going to try to keep him away from technology as long as I can, and then, I'm sure that will be a lost cause at some point.
Right. Exactly. So tell me a little bit about your journey. Obviously, as a director of marketing, that's your background. How did you evolve into a content marketer? What first drew you into content marketing?
So here's the funny thing. I actually have zero background in marketing at all. Okay. All right? So that does not mean that marketing is an easy job. It is incredibly difficult. Just I had no background. I was a math major at the University of Rochester, mostly because I could get through it and do the other things that I wanted to do in school besides actually learn. And from there, I tried the full landscape of large corporate jobs that you feel like you should get after graduating from a university. So, accounting firm, I worked for American Express in their finance department in New York City for a little while, and I hated all of it. I hated being part of the cube farm. I hated being part of what I kind of saw as a machine. And I don't mean that in like I was against it. I just didn't feel like I was making an impact in any way, and that was important to me. So my wife and I were living in New York at the time, and her father owned the insurance agency we currently work for. We decided we wanted to move back to Albany since we're both from the Albany area. And I started interviewing, and he kind of sat me down and said, "Why don't you come sell insurance?" So I got out of the corporate world by becoming an insurance salesman. Tried and true, rubber sole shoes, walking the streets, harassing my family, kind of insurance salesman. And I did that for about 5 years. And this is kind of where the story goes from being maybe not a marketer at all to becoming a marketer and then ultimately a content marketer. About 2 years into my insurance career, I went to a chamber function. Now, for as much as I embrace technology today, I don't have a natural affinity to it as far as being part of the Facebook generation or whatever. Like, I'm 32, so it kind of came in a little after college for me, and I didn't even have a Facebook account. I didn't have a LinkedIn account. I barely used email, and besides for work purposes. And I was at a chamber function, a local chamber function, and I was standing in one of those groups that inevitably forms where everyone gets in the circle and stares at each other like a high school dance. And I heard a mortgage broker and a real estate agent, two people who could be potential lead generation sources for me, say to each other, "Well, we'll just connect on LinkedIn." And it was like the fire alarm just went off in my head, right? What are they talking about? Obviously I'd heard the term LinkedIn before, but I had no idea what the platform was or what it held. And I was like, how is it happening that two people who are potentially very good lead sources for me are having this conversation in a space that I'm not in? So I actually left the chamber function that moment, drove all the way back to my office, and spent the next 2 hours on LinkedIn, building a profile, getting to know what it was. And from there, I was kind of hooked on what digital and social media marketing could do for a professional. I don't know if that gets me to when I started blogging, which is like a whole nother story and all that.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. So I have to ask you, sometimes I'm out and about and I'll be talking to people about content marketing, and I'll say, "Oh, do you blog or do you do video or et cetera?" And they'll say, "Oh, no, I'm in insurance." As if that fact in itself
They'll say they're in insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very funny. So, because part of what I do is very insurance focused. Part of the content marketing consultancy side of my life is pretty much primarily focused on the insurance industry. So I get that all the time. Now, last year I produced 257 blog articles for our website. Wow. So very active. So it kind of, to me, when someone says, "Well, I'm in insurance," or "I do life insurance," or I'm in banking or whatever, and they're like, "We have so many regulations that we can't do that." First of all, I know that that's false. I know that they are regulated in some of the things they can say, but not that they can't do it at all. I know because I did all the research before I started. So that's just an excuse for what they're really saying is, I don't know what I would write about. I'm uncomfortable with the technology. I don't see myself as a thought leader or a writer. No one's going to want to read what I have to say, so I'm going to use this regulatory thing as an excuse for why I don't do it. And that's what they're actually saying when they say that, and that's perfectly okay. I mean, those are the legitimate excuses for the regulatory thing. So a lot of my work is around breaking down those barriers, making the process easier for them and helping helping these kind of professional services people understand that there is a way to make their business interesting and fun for people, while at the same time being very professional and forthcoming and meeting all the regulatory issues that they are faced with, versus say like a retail store where no one really cares what you say. So.
Right, exactly. And along those lines, I understand you have a new project called the Grow Program. Talk about that.
Yes, so the Grow program is actually a kind of subset of my work at ryanhanley.com, and it's specifically designed digital insurance marketing, articles, advice, and ultimately what will be an academy, so a membership program specifically designed for insurance professionals. So, I am very aware that I am neither the best at insurance nor marketing, but when you put those two things together, not to kind of show hubris or whatever, but I am at kind of the top of being able to combine those two languages. So I created the Grow program as a way to speak to insurance professionals specifically about digital content, social media marketing topics, and put it in terminology that they understand. The industry is very, maybe not unique, but just maybe like every other industry. But if you don't speak insurance, they literally do not care what you have to say. You could be giving them solid gold, like the keys to the bank vault. But if you don't put it into insurance terms, they literally don't care. They just will pass you off as not understanding who they are and what they do, and we'll move on to the next person. And being that I understand that, the Grow program was specifically designed to talk about these things in a language and in a business format that insurance professionals will understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. So specifically on content marketing, I know it's still kind of a new term that we're throwing around, and we're seeing all kinds of different definitions out there. How do you personally define content marketing?
Content marketing to me, is really just marketing. It's just a different way of describing a subset of marketing, in that all marketing is content, whether it's visual, video, slideshows. Anytime you're using some type of messaging, and that it doesn't have to involve words. It can be audio. It could be like a song that doesn't have to have lyrics with it. It can just be a melody played, and if that melody evokes an emotion that ultimately engages, entertains your audience, and kind of enamors them to your brand, your content marketing. Now, you can get much more technical with the definition, but it's very broad. Anything is marketing, but in a more kind of definitive sense, it's kind of using words, using video, using language, and putting together messaging that keeps people engaged with your brand. Maybe that's top of mind. Maybe that's actually doing like Jay Baer's new book, Utility. Maybe that's some sort of useful marketing. But it's all content. You have to produce something. Versus word of mouth marketing, which is where someone else is, calling up their friend and saying, "Hey, I just had this great experience." That's a different set of marketing. You're encouraging other people to call their friends and get them to come to you. Content marketing is you producing content in order to engage and entertain your audience and bring them back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and certainly as you just described, content marketing is nothing new. I mean, smart marketers have been doing this for ages. But why do you think this approach to marketing is so important in this day and age right now?
I think it's important because I think it's important because of the level of noise that is currently in the marketplace. So there was a time when, and if you ever listen to, say, like a Seth Godin talk about marketing, he talks a lot about the differences between what marketing was like in the 50s and 60s versus what it is today. And back then, you could spend some money, buy an ad. There were a lot of gatekeepers, and as long as you paid them enough money, they would make sure that your ad found enough people that you would drive more revenue to your business than you paid for that advertising. And you could run your business through that model. Today, that is much harder to do for a lot of different reasons. One being that people's attention is so much more spread out. Some people listen to podcasts. Some people watch YouTube videos. Some people read text-based blog posts. Some people spend all their time on Pinterest. 50 years ago, one radio ad would capture all those people. Today, you need to be able to produce an image that captures people's attention on Pinterest, a YouTube video, a podcast, and be able to write in order to capture that same audience. And there's a lot of methodology to repurposing your content to make sure you hit all those people in a format that they enjoy. But it's that process that makes content marketing so important today is being able to create something for the audience that you're trying to attract. And there's a lot of theory that goes into you probably don't want all those people. So like for me, I don't necessarily have an audience on Pinterest for whatever reason. It's not the necessarily the demographic of consumers that I'm trying to attract, mostly because I am not as good with creating visual stuff. So I'm sure if I was better at creating visuals, then I could pull out some form of client base or consumer base from Pinterest. But for me, I'm much better at writing or doing the audio with the podcast. So that's where I focus. And I just said I'm going to do the best I can in those two formats, and video a little I do as well. But and I just let Pinterest go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So in your opinion, what would a successful content marketing program look like?
So I think a successful content marketing program really starts with what you want your goal to be. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do here at the Murray Group so that I can kind of frame what I'm trying to say. For us, understanding that insurance is not a sexy topic, and that it's just there are other things that if you were in other industries you could write about your topic and it would be really cool, right? If you're Zappos and you sell shoes, you can create lots of cool videos of people doing things with shoes because there's shoe collectors and there's all these different people and people love shoes. It kind of defines who we are. Your insurance policy does not define who you are. You know what I mean? Like there aren't insurance policy collectors out there. So it's tough. So you have to look at my strategy here at the Murray Group is going to be much different than if I worked in a different industry. Okay, so that being the case, what do we really want? We want to stay top of mind for people, which it is tough to do, but that really just speaks to frequency. So I'm gonna want my message to be a little more frequent than, say, someone whose product, you're selling high-end hiking backpacks. Right, so there's a very specific audience who wants that information. You may only need to produce 1, 2, 3 pieces of content a month because there is this audience who is thirsty for that type of information about these products because it's what they love to do. So you don't need to produce as much to stay top of mind. For me, people don't want to think about insurance, so I need to be very consistent with the amount of content that I'm creating so that I can stay top of mind. So on the occasion that someone sees my article and they find it interesting, they remember the Murray Group. Okay, so that's number one. The next piece is, what am I trying to get from them with my content? So social media in the insurance side of my business is not something I necessarily focus on because people don't go to Facebook to buy insurance. They go to Facebook to see cool pictures and maybe learn about fun products they really love, or interact with their friends. They don't really care so much about what's going on with their local insurance agency. I get that. So social media is less of a focus for me. For me, my content is very search engine friendly. So everything is keyword research, optimized pages, using different forms of media, specifically a lot of video. And then inside those pages, I really have two goals. Everybody who comes to one of those pages, I either want to get them to subscribe to one of our newsletters, which we use Infusionsoft to kind of automate our marketing process on the back end. And I've created a few different veins of content for the specific products that we sell, that we focus on. So we have like a personal lines insurance newsletter, a commercial lines insurance newsletter, a restaurant insurance specific newsletter, and it goes on. So anybody who comes to one of my posts, I want them to either subscribe to one of my newsletters or call us to get a quote for their business. So I'm not asking for a bunch of different stuff. I'm not asking them to like our Facebook page because I don't care if they like my Facebook page. I want my clients to like my Facebook page, but I don't care if, you, Rachel, have a question about your auto insurance and you find our page. I don't care if you like my Facebook page. What I would like you to do is either pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I have this question. Can you guys help me? Or say, these guys look like a nice organization. I'm willing to receive, an email from them every 45 days about something that helps me with whatever. And we can go into what the newsletter content is later because there's a whole strategy behind that. But so it's goal focused. I want you to take one of those two goals. Either you're a hot lead goal or you're a long-term prospect goal. So email capture versus calls for a quote. And everything I do is SEO, search engine optimized content using different forms of media so that we show up first in search. And that is a much different content strategy than it would be if I was selling something else or my business was different. But that's how we set it up, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Interesting that you mentioned topics a few minutes ago because, like, if you are in an industry that is decidedly unsexy, like if my business sells, I don't know, industrial lubricants, how do I find topics that are going to engage people without bringing up my product or my service over and over again?
Here I'm going to bring up the Marcus Sheridan kind of example, something that we've done in our own business. Back in January of 2012, we had not produced a blog post. Mm-hmm. We had never written a blog post for our website up until January 2nd of 2012. Most of that was because there were some revenue sharing issues that we had to deal with internally. But once those were worked out, and we were ready to rock with our website and our blog, I did something called the 100 Insurance Questions Answered in 100 Days. So the whole month of December, knowing that we were going to start blogging, I collected questions from our clients. So even if you are selling industrial lubricants, which you could actually do some pretty fun content with that. I mean, you could find some cool things to like slick up and slide down different slips.
This is true.
But say that was your topic. You have a client base. What I would do is go out to that client base and say, if you could only have one question answered, what would it be? Like, what is your most high priority question about industrial lubricants? How does it impact your business? Is there something that's on your brain that you said, geez, I wish I had a little more information about this? And I would collect as many of those questions as you could. In my case, throughout the month of December, we were able to collect 147 questions. I then pared those 147 questions down to 100 just to kind of have a nice, neat number, and because some of them were duplicates. So I then answered those questions in the form of a YouTube video that was 2 minutes or less, and it was just a talking head video, so I would just turn the camera on, talk into the camera, answer them in 2 minutes or less on a YouTube video, and I did that for 100 days in a row. Now, that's fairly aggressive strategy, but what it did was I'm sure some of the people listening to this have seen the movie Pulp Fiction, where Uma Thurman's character is ODing on heroin and John Travolta's character has to stick the adrenaline shot in her heart and she comes like bursting back to life. Well, that's what happened to our website. Because we were consistently creating content on a daily basis and we were using, different multimedia formats, which in this case was YouTube, combined with, a nice healthy amount of text around it. We were able to take our website from 70 hits a week. We were getting 70 hits a week before we started blogging, which isn't obviously not a lot, to 500 hits a week in those 100 days.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a pretty drastic increase in the amount of traffic that you're getting on a weekly basis. and we were answering questions about insurance, like what is short-term disability? I mean, that is an incredibly boring question, but it was a question that one of our clients had. I would like to know what New York short-term disability is. I pay this premium every month. I have no clue what it is. Perfect. And that kind of information is a really good way to get going, especially if you're struggling for content ideas. Just answering the questions that your clients have about your business is great. And then once you get into it, you'll start to say, well, geez, when we talk about this part of our business, we seem to get a lot more engagement and a lot more hits on that. And, if you're doing keyword research and using different tools, you can kind of tell what is going to get the most action. But if you find that you're getting more, then you can run with that. And my last piece of advice on this question is that there is no detail about your business is too small that you can't create a piece of content around it. So often your best pieces of content are the most minute details that you take for granted every single day. That's the little stuff that your customers don't understand about your business or may have a question about that can get them hung up in the sales process. And if you make those little tiny details, if you let them know about those, then that can to go back to our example there, that can lubricate the sales process quite a bit, because oftentimes it's these little tiny things that make people feel a little uncomfortable, and then they back off the process, or they may ask questions that are people don't want to seem uneducated, so they will often push back because they don't know the answer to something. If you make that answer readily available, boom, you can really increase the sales process, increase the speed at which the sales process takes place.
Yeah, like I'm sure a lot of people would be embarrassed to sit down with an agent and say, well, what is long-term disability? But if you provide the answer to it, then, you're kind of halfway there.
Exactly. Like a business owner, this was a business owner who had insurance with us for quite a while, and even though I know that when they went through the initial process of purchasing insurance from us, that the product was explained to them, they didn't understand. They probably weren't listening. They'd probably already heard enough, which I don't blame them. And they had this question. And those are the little kind of things that can ultimately lose you a piece of business, because in the back of their mind, they're going, geez, what is this? Do I even need this? Why are they selling me this thing? Well, in your mind as the expert, you take it for granted that they know what that product is. And by just providing that information online and letting people know that there's a lot of answers to their questions readily available in that space, you're not pushing off the responsibility of explaining it. You're just allowing people who prefer a self-service type education on your product the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you have your topics in place, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. How do you go about choosing the right vehicles for getting that content out there?
So for me, that's it's always been a very trial and error thing. I like to let me wrap this around. I use mostly text for insurance purposes, text and video, and there are certain topics that I use YouTube videos for, and there's certain topics that we will self-host videos on Wistia for, and that's I can go into that in a second. But basically, if I think something is going to take 1,000 to 1,200 words to explain, I'm just going to create a video around it, because I can create a 2-minute video and take that text down to 500 words with a 2-minute video versus a 1,200 word article about insurance, which no one is going to read. I mean, nobody. So when I basically look at the topic and determine whether I'm going to use video or not based on 2 factors. One, is it something that I can be passionate about on video and really show how much emotion we have and how much dedication we have for this topic and convince people that we're the person to do business with? Or is it a very robust topic that can be pared down into a 2-minute video and take away all that reading? Because someone will watch a 2-minute video, they're not going to read 1,200 words about insurance. About other topics, that's not the case. So for me, those are really how I determine. So I'm doing right now a 5-part series on risk management. And I'm keeping the text to about 500 words and doing a 1.5 to 2 minute, very basic video around whatever it is that I'm interested in. So if it's what is risk and what are the 5 classes of risk, boom, I can do that in 1:45 seconds. And someone will read or will watch that because it's very interesting. If I were to type all that out, it's like close to 1,000 words, and that allows me to break it down. It gives people something to watch, and also I self-hosted that on Wistia because that gives us more SEO value by owning that video and owning the term, small business risk management, and kind of adding that video object into the post. So that's a little technical, I guess, but basically there are certain things that I want to rank really well for, small business risk management being one of them. So I'm going to create additional video objects, additional videos to support us ranking for that term. If I just want to be found for a term and I don't care where the people go, then I'll just put it on YouTube. Because what a lot of content marketers don't understand is that YouTube cannibalizes your traffic. If you create a video and then you put that video on your website in a YouTube video, more often than not, the YouTube video is going to rank higher than your blog post. So you're actually sending traffic to YouTube. Now, in many cases, I don't care because all I really care about is that the people are seeing Murray Group and that we know what we're talking about. But with something like I want to rank in this within 100 miles of where I'm sitting for the term small business risk management, I am going to own that video myself through like a self-hosting service like Wistia and make Google send people to our website specifically for that term. Does that make sense in the differentiation between why you would use one versus the other?
Yeah, absolutely. And I never even thought of that. I just kind of always equated, of course you would use YouTube. It's the second most popular search engine. But
yes.
But the way you explain it, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So there are ways to. So then, people would push back and say, well, you can do lead capture on YouTube, which is great. So if your goal is lead capture, getting email addresses or getting people to take some action, then YouTube is perfectly fine. So I do a series for my marketing website for RyanHanley.com called Google Plus Friday.
Yes,
where every Friday I just put together a short tip about how to use Google Plus a little better, and most of the time it's just things that I find out, and when I figure them out, I just put them in a short video and I share them with people. My goal for that is to gain more people following me on the Google Plus platform. So I put that on YouTube and I embed right into the YouTube video, connect with me on Google Plus link, and I get a lot of new followers on Google Plus through those videos. So that's content that I'm creating around my goal of gaining more Google Plus followers. The opposite end of the spectrum is I want people coming to my website for small business risk management. I don't want Google to send any traffic to their own website, to YouTube. I want them only to send traffic to my website. So I'm going to own that video and use a service like Wistia, which does have a cost, which is why most people don't do it. But I'll tell you, the SEO benefit and the Wistia itself has heat map tracking and URL tracking, and you get a lot more dynamic analytics from Wistia than you do from embedding a video from YouTube on your website.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. So speaking of video marketing, I saw a recent survey. I think it was Marketing Sherpa, and they went on and asked a bunch of marketers to rate the difficulty of different types of content. So how, in terms of time, effort, and resources, how difficult are these types of content to produce? And of course, I think the most difficult was mobile apps, which makes sense. You know, it requires coding and everything. But the second most difficult was online video. And I think 80% of the respondents ranked online video as either somewhat difficult or very difficult, which just floored me because in these days of, Vine and Instagram, it's easier than ever. Does it surprise you that so many marketers are still reluctant to embrace online video?
It doesn't surprise me. Just because, the thing with video is there's a couple of things to it. One, there needs to be more strategy involved than producing a blog post. So you can have a relative amount of success by I wake up in the morning, what's on my mind, I write a blog post, I put it on my blog, and if they're all generally rotating around the same topic, I can have a decent amount of success. You don't have to, if you really want to be successful, there's a lot more strategy that goes involved. But, just by being active and producing content and having it kind of be near one topic, you can be successful doing that. With video, you can produce a video, and if you don't have a purpose behind it, if you don't take time to kind of wireframe out how you want it to look and feel, you can take the time. Then you got to take the time to video it. To actually capture the video. Then you got to edit it. Then you got to put it up on a YouTube or a Wistia, put it out there. There's a significant amount of production and post-production that goes into it on the level of actually having impact. I think that, yes, there's Instagram and Vine, which are fine, and they're fine for like small drips. But you got to think, an Instagram video is the same as a tweet. You hit the tweet button, it goes out, people like it, but what are you really getting back from it?
Yeah.
That's more of a social media strategy where I think that it can have a significant impact if you have a team of marketers or something. If you're incredibly invested in Twitter or Facebook, maybe even, you could have a Vine strategy. But for me, and I think for most, at least mid and small size businesses, it's more of actually taking the time to capture a video. And if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that there's a purpose behind it, that you have a call to action, that you're not stuttering, ums and ahs, all that kind of stuff. Like, there can be a little of that in there, but you can negatively impact your brand if you're just flipping open your iPhone, taking a video, stumbling, stuttering, long pauses. You're not, editing off the beginning and the end or whatever. So I do think that there is something to it. Now, that all being said, once you do it a few times and you get the process down, it becomes much easier. And the impact of video, in my personal opinion, is so far is so much more than just producing text post after text-based blog post after text-based blog post, that it's worth that investment to me. Once you have a structure down, and I have ScreenFlow. It cost me $100 on my Mac, and it works amazing. I can do green screen videos, white screen, infinity back screen. I can do blurred backgrounds if I'm in public or if I have a different backdrop. I can do all kinds of different things with this silly program I bought for $100 and a $250 HD Sony camera. Mm-hmm. So there's not an incredible amount of monetary investment. And if you have an idea of what you're doing, you can get incredible results. Most of my opt-ins today to my newsletter, I shouldn't say most, about 30% of my opt-ins to my newsletter today are coming from videos that I've created, and I'm now getting people to opt in from those videos. So it's well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if a brand decides, yes, I want to embrace content marketing, I want to start putting out content in these different venues, it's really easy to be enthusiastic at the beginning. You've got a head full of potential topics and you're good to go. And then, 6 months down the road, maybe not so much. So how do you safeguard against, content fading or content burnout? How do you keep that funnel full, and how do you keep that flow of fresh content coming?
What I do personally is I keep, I text myself ideas.
Okay.
I'll tell you, this is how I keep fresh ideas in my mind, is ideas come to you at the worst possible time.
Yes.
You have to understand that's just the way that it is. So like you're going to be driving and all your ideas are going to flood into your brain in that moment. Or you're going to be sitting in a meeting and someone's going to say something and there's going to be an idea that pops in your head and you have to be able to capture that idea or it's going to be lost. And then when you sit down in front of your computer, you're not going to have them.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually text myself ideas all day long. So at any given time, I have like 50 blog post titles or ideas sitting in my inbox that I just text myself emails. And it sounds like I wish I had a sexier answer for you than that. But that's really what I do because, geez, I mean, last year between all the different properties that I write on, I produced over 400 blog posts,
Wow.
which one thing that helps with that is Dragon dictation.
Mm-hmm.
I dictate most of my blog posts today, and then I go back in and I edit them for style and tone, but I get the majority of the idea out through dictation, and I cut my post production time like by 2/3.
Wow.
It costs $100, and they have it. It's a little less if you get it for a PC. I got it for the Mac, and the Mac version was just a little more expensive. But this tool for me has allowed me to create so much more content. And like I said, I just rough it out, boom, get the ideas out, and then I go back in and I just edit it for tone and style. And what may have taken me an hour now takes me 25 minutes.
Wow.
So that's how I did that.
Uh-huh.
But just keeping those ideas down, writing them down, having a notebook by. I mean, the classic stuff. Because I could say like, listen to what your clients ask you, answer the questions. They're constantly asking you questions all day long, no matter what business you're in, and just writing down those questions. Boom. So right now I have like 15 Post-its on my desk that are just in a little pile with ideas. I have, like, got to have 30 emails in a little folder of ideas I've texted myself. And, when I don't have something fresh in my mind, I just go to one of those Post-its or something and I look through them, and that's how I keep ideas going. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of I've just created a mindset of collecting them. Mm-hmm. And I think it's even more important. Like, it's my job, so I have time to, if I am stuck, think about something. But if it's not your job and you're pressed for time, like, you don't want to sit down at your computer to write and not know what to write about. Mm-hmm. So collecting ideas constantly, allows you to just sit down. Okay, this one sounds good. Boom, now I can go with this, and then run with it. Because you can strategize all you want, but after a little while, you're gonna run out, and you're gonna want to talk about something else. So just try to collect ideas wherever you can. I text myself ideas all day long, and it's worked for me.
Hey, whatever works, that's what I say. Ryan, I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk about your podcast. So how did you get started in podcasting?
I thought it would be cool.
Okay.
I thought, I saw, some kind of online thought leaders starting podcasts, or I just started listening to them, and I said, this seems like a really good idea, and I didn't have a grand strategy for it at the beginning. I just said I want to figure this out. Like, I don't want people to ask me about podcasting and not be able to give them an answer. I have this almost like neurotic desire to know at least a little bit about everything. Mm-hmm. And so I started, and I just said, I'm going to figure it out. And it was terrible, and I did a really bad job. But I started to love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, as you know, Rachel, this is like it's like an addiction almost.
It is.
There's something about it that, and I don't know what it is specifically, but you just get kind of hooked on it. And I did. And I ultimately upgraded some of my equipment, not anything real crazy, but just upgraded my equipment a little bit and started spending more time thinking about what I wanted to do. And I went from a monthly to a weekly. And now, man, it's such a huge part of kind of who I am even. I just love it.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the title of your podcast, which is of course Content Warfare. Tell us where that came from.
You know, I just feel I was sitting here one day and I've had the idea of content warfare on my brain for a really long time, probably since I started. And getting found online feels like a battle. Like I've never been to war, but I did play sports, and the competitiveness of it, the pure like desire you have to be on top, even though that's absolutely impossible, it just feels like a battle every day, and you're constantly learning new tricks and new tactics, and you're strategizing and you're making relationships, and it feels like a game of Risk, right? Like you're constantly moving your pieces around the board to better align yourself and gather more territory and more readers, and you know, maybe some of that is ego driven, but at the same time it's very, just feels like a battle. So you know, I just said, geez, you know, it's like you're creating content. It's like a war. It's like you're fighting for eyeballs. You're fighting for attention, and you know, there are positive ways of doing that, and there are negative ways of going after it, kind of the white hat, black hat, and it's all part of the game. So it just seemed to fit, and that's what I went with.
Yeah, awesome. Now I have to say, looking at your episode list, it reads like a who's who in content marketing. It really does. You recently spoke to Michael Stelzner. You talked to Jay Baer a couple of weeks ago. You had Amy Porterfield in there. How do you get all these great interviews?
I just ask them.
Okay.
I'll tell you, more than 98% of the people who, you know, probably you and I read almost every day are just super nice, regular people. Michael Stelzner is the nicest guy I've ever talked to. I mean, he just, you know, because you never know. I mean, here's a guy, he's got 220,000 people on his newsletter. He's got this $1 million online marketing business. He runs, you know, Social Media Marketing World, the big event he just had. I mean, one of the most well-known names in the online marketing industry. And you just don't know what they're going to be like, you know, and you, a lot of times you have to deal with their handler and your scheduler, and you're going through, so that you don't actually interact with them that much until you hit the call button on Skype to do the interview. And oh my gosh, what a nice guy. Just, you know, down to earth, really fantastic, you know, came with, you know, maybe because I got him, he's talking about a new product he has coming out called My Kids Adventures, which is a neat little community. But probably because I was towards the beginning of his podcast schedule, maybe that was more, maybe if I caught him at the end, he'd be a little worn out. But geez, just so willing to talk about what he did to become successful. And you know, I think that it's important as an industry that we help each other, because, you know, it like the title of the podcast, it's a battle. It's, you know, this is hard stuff, and to figure it out all on your own is almost impossible. And if we don't help each other, there's so much there's so much web traffic and sales and you know, email. I mean, there's infinite number of people that can be on your email list and all this stuff. It's not a zero-sum game. And if we help each other, you know, people who want their voice to be heard, I think that we all are much more successful. So all the people that are on my podcast list are people that I just adore, and all of them have been fantastic. So I've been very, very lucky.
Yeah. So how did you make that initial contact? Was it on email, or how did you get in touch with them?
All different ways. I mean,
and I say this with every intention of stealing your techniques.
Yeah. You know, all different ways. It really depends on the person, because I try to do it. I try a last resort. If it's somebody that I really want to talk to, my last resort is some sort of public forum, like Twitter. Like I would never just ask somebody openly on Twitter, because then you're kind of putting them on blast, right? So that would be an absolute last resort, and I would have to be having a conversation with them about something else and then drop that in, not just out of the blue, hey, would you come on my podcast? Most of them, I would say, I send a message to on Google+. So the predominant, if I don't have their email, which emails aren't always easy to get, a lot of them I subscribe to their newsletters. So I'll just reply to the newsletter, and then, it takes time because the person that replies to the newsletter a lot of times is not actually them. It's someone that works for them. So then, you got to work through that process, and it takes time and effort, and you send out 5 requests and 2 or 3 people will get back to you, and you can't take that personally because they're busy and they probably get a lot of requests, and you just kind of, people that want to come on. I'm not going to try to force somebody to come on my show who doesn't want to be there. I want a good rapport with the person, because you're going to get so much more out of the interview than if the person's just there because they see an opportunity to push a product or get a link from your website to theirs. Like, you really want it to be this. You want there to be a little rapport and a little engagement, and you just get so much more out of it.
Definitely. So, with regard to podcasting in general, I started hearing, I guess, probably the second half of 2012 that we're entering a new golden age of podcasting.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, everybody wants to say that, and I think I don't know if more podcasts equals golden age. I think that, there's certainly more people podcasting today than ever before. There's more people listening to podcasts today than ever before, which are good things. I think there's a lot of really crappy podcasts out there that people create for the wrong reasons, and so I think there's positive and negative to it. I think that there are some really great shows that have been created recently. A good one that I started listening to are the guys from thinktraffic.net, Corbett Barr and Chase Reeves and Caleb Wojcik, whose name I just probably butchered. But they have a really nice podcast called Fizzle, very recently started, maybe a month or so ago. But for every one really great podcast, there's some that people feel like they should be podcasting because it's the cool thing to do now.
Right.
And those are really tough to listen to.
Yeah, I got you. And then, of course, there are the orphan podcast. People, podcast it every week for 12 weeks and then disappear.
Yeah, and that's hard too. It's like I don't want to invest myself in someone's show and then have them just be like, oh, I got busy, sorry.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I kind of wish that you had thought about that before you did 12 episodes and I enjoyed what you were doing. And, I get it's your life and it's your podcast or whatever. But at the same time, the thing with podcasting, I guess, unlike blogging in its text format, is that you want the person to be committed to it. Like, it is kind of a commitment that I'm going to invest 30, 45, 60 minutes of my life with you. I want you to keep coming back.
Yeah.
And I took 1 week off since I went to a weekly format, and it was like someone was knifing me in the back. Like, that's how I felt like I was betraying my audience that I didn't put something out. And the reason I did that is because I had 2 cancellations in the same week. I'm usually 2 ahead. And I had 2 cancellations in the same week, which never happens. And then some life things came up, and if I had created something, it wouldn't have been quality.
Right.
So I didn't want to put out something that wasn't quality. And then I was in this emotional roller coaster all weekend between, should I try to rush something out so that I have something for them? But at the same, so you just want people to be invested in it, because you can tell when the person loves talking. Obviously, I love talking, but you can tell when they do and when they don't. And, you're investing a lot of time with them. I mean, an hour is a long time.
Absolutely. So Ryan, clearly you've got a lot going on right now with your podcast, with your marketing work, with your insurance agency. And I know you do a lot of speaking on content marketing as well.
I do quite a bit, mostly in the insurance industry, but I've done some other events as well, and I'm hoping to do more. I love speaking. I try to give a very real look at what it's like for mid and small sized businesses. So I'm not the guy that's going to stand up there and say, this is what Fortune 500 companies do or should be doing. I have no clue what they should be doing, but to that audience, I just love talking to them. I love seeing the little light bulb go on over their head. And I think you can get that when you really engage with them. And in person, so much more. It happens so much quicker. Maybe they got to read 100 blog posts or watch 20 videos or listen to 5 podcasts. But you give me, 90 minutes in front of a live audience and, I can probably turn some light bulbs on. And it's like makes your month. It's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So clearly you've got a lot going on right now. What, besides obviously fatherhood, is what do you see in the future? What's in store for you in the months to come?
Oh, geez, man, I don't even know clue. I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. What is it, Thursday? No. So really, we have Digital Insurance Marketing Academy is coming out for the Grow program. That is really my focus right now. And then I have a pretty full schedule in the fall of speaking engagements leading up to about a month before my son is going to be born. So I'm getting almost, I think, 5 speaking engagements in from September to the middle of October, and then I'm stopping so that I'm available in case my son's going to be named Duke, in case Duke comes early. So, so basically getting the Digital Insurance Marketing Academy going. Right now, we just have people can opt in and be part of our founders list and have access to kind of some behind-the-scenes stuff, and then they'll have first crack at the community once it's open in early September, and we're building out the content for that. So that's been most of my focus right now and for this foreseeable future, at least till early September.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. I hope I didn't meander too much. I tend to go off on tangents. And
If you did, there were quality meanderings.
Okay, good.
If our audience would like to know more about you and what you do, what's the best way for them to find you and connect with you?
Absolute best place is go to ryanhanley.com. And if anyone is a Google Plus user, I absolutely love Google Plus. That is where I first connected with Rachel, and I hope that you'd connect with me there as well. You can just search for Ryan Hanley and you'll find me.
Great. Well, thanks again, Ryan, and congratulations again on the new arrival.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
All right, we'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks again to Ryan for joining us today and sharing his insights. That URL again, where you can find out more about him, is ryanhanley.com, and that's RYANHANLEY.com. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about creating a style guide for your content. Now, don't be alarmed. When most people hear style guide, they think something along the lines of the Associated Press style book or the Chicago Manual of Style, these huge tomes. So it might sound a little bit intimidating, but really, a style guide is just a list of the general guidelines that you and your team follow while creating your content. And it's really important because it helps ensure consistency, which is vitally important for creating your brand, whether it's on your podcast or in your e-newsletter or in your blog. You want to make sure that everything is consistent. And the style guide includes things as simple as, are you going to hyphenate the word email when you write it in print? And that's, it's something very simple, but it's something that you want to make consistent so that you can keep all of your communications consistent. So the important thing with the style guide is just starting. Just start keeping a list of how you're going to express certain things. For example, one of my clients, one of their standards is that they never say the words, "we are proud," or "we're very proud to do something." That would be a great entry in a style guide. And again, it could could just be a Word document, just a list of things to do, do's and don'ts, or this is how we write this term, or this is how we express that term, this is what we capitalize, this is what we don't capitalize, things like that. And style guides tend to be a work in progress. So just get started, start keeping that list, keep it in a place where everybody can get to it, whether your team uses Dropbox or Google Docs or however you create and make sure that those files are available, and just keep it updated. Sometimes you might want to say, okay, we haven't decided whether or not we're going to hyphenate email, and then figure that out and put it there, and then it's a standard, then you don't have to worry about it. And even if you are the only one creating content for your business, it is still a handy guide to go back to. And I say that from personal experience. So, when I'm creating my e-newsletter, when it's due 8 o'clock Friday morning, and I'm working on it Thursday night at 11:30, I don't want to have to think back or look back at all my blog posts to see, okay, how do I, do I capitalize this or do I hyphenate that? It's really handy to have around so that you can refer to it, especially when you are tired and don't feel like looking things up and it's the wee hours of the morning. So get that style guide started and refer to it often. Okay, campers, that is it for me this week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Thanks again to Ryan Hanley for joining us and for sharing his insights with us. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or via the RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review. I would so appreciate hearing that from you. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our blog at resonancecontent.com/blog, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social networks. If you'd like to email me a question to cover in an upcoming tip of the week, I would love to hear that. And you can contact me anytime at rachel@resonancecontent.com. Or if it's a short question, you can always tweet me. Finally, if you'd like for me to come speak about content marketing to your business or your organization, check out my landing page at contentmarketingspeaker.net. Again, that's .net, not .com, and it's Content Marketing Speaker, all one word. As always, I like to leave you with a quote, and today's is from Neil Gaiman, who is a very famous science fiction writer. He says, "You get ideas from daydreaming. You get ideas from being bored. You get ideas all the time. The only difference between writers and other people is we notice when we're doing it." And of course, you could substitute the word writers for content creators or bloggers or podcasters or video creators or whatever it is you happen to do. We're just naturally inclined to, or we become naturally inclined to recognizing those ideas when they come up. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing, and we will see you again next week. Take care.